right, there we go. Live and in charge here. How's everybody doing?
I love that bumper. Not a total
Yeah, that
fail
was
the
great.
first time around.
That was nice.
Yeah, it's coming together. One step at a time here.
We are slowly making this a more and more professional show. I absolutely love it.
That's right. So, Chris, how you doing today? Welcome to.
Good, very good. Thanks for having me on. This is my second time.
I know.
Yeah,
on shows.
absolutely, man. And the whole goal of this show is to help people grow their assets with real estate. The three of us love real estate investing and have personally invested a lot of money and also helped other people invest money in real estate. And we are coming to you with the Real Estate Hackers, which is a brand that is set up to basically just 100% focus on teaching people how to invest in real estate. And they reached out to us after you were on our show the first time, Chris, and said, "Hey, would love for you kind of to be a product of Real Estate Hackers, and would love you guys to continue doing what you're doing underneath our umbrella." So all this week, Chris, we've been walking people through the buying process, teaching people. There's a lot of people out there teaching people, how to wholesale deals and how to kind of build a buyer's list, or how to market for deals, how to market for money, how to put together syndications, how to, do a bunch of that stuff. There's very few people actually teaching the sales process. So one of the things that we did is on Monday, we went over Credibility Kit and what goes in your credibility kit and the importance of having a good credibility kit. On Tuesday, we went over the personality profiles. We just did a basic disc layout, and the importance of mirroring and the importance of, building rapport and things like that, and how that plays into what you're doing. The other thing that we did was we talked about yesterday, we actually went over a slide deck that Josh uses. Josh was a wholesaler down in Philly doing 5 to 10 to 15 deals each and every month with just himself and one other partner. And so I said, listen, we got to have Chris on again because, Chris is a middle-aged dude like you and me, Josh, but 5 years ago was running into burning buildings and saving lives. He didn't grow up in real estate. So the fact that he's been able to have the incredible success that he has, I think just speaks to the fact that this is it's a recipe. You know what I mean? I really love to cook. And so I post photos online, and a week ago, I've cooked my whole life, but I've never baked bread. And so a week ago, I was like, you know what? I'm going to start baking bread. And what did I do? I just followed some recipes, and people were like, how is that so good? And my kids are like, oh, this is amazing. It's just following a recipe. And so we want to talk to you about your recipe today. Josh has something he wants to say. Sorry for soapboxing, Josh.
No, it's all right. It's all right. I'm going to shut up, Chris. We're giving you the mic, man. We want to hear. We've been talking all week. We want to hear what you got to say.
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for having me back on. I always say on shows, if a guest comes back more than once, they were either horrible or great, and I'm happy to fit into either one of those categories.
Yeah, you weren't great. You were just dramatic. We're lighting it on fire and watching it burn. That's what it's all about.
So yeah, the sales process. Before we actually get into processes, I think it's important to note what you said. This is not something that I've done for my life. This is something I've done for the past 4 years. And all of us in this niche, I feel like real estate investing or real estate in general, when you want to do this for yourself as an entrepreneur, it's that drive to learn. And sales, just like anything else in the business, is it's not a skill, it's a tool. And as long as you're willing to put the time, effort into learning that, and then you create the tool to what you need it to do. And that's really what sales is. There's no magic pill, because I think everyone in the beginning, we look for it. What is the magic pill? What are the right things to say? What is the exact thing that you tell somebody to have them sell you their house? Well, there is no exact thing.
Oh man, I was hoping you were going to say there was magic words. I was all getting ready to write them down.
Well, there can be some, but they're threatening. And if that's what works for you, then that's what works for you. But not in our process.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
you're
where would
exactly,
you like
you're
to go with
exactly
this?
right. There is no magic words, and also you need to learn and make it your own, and you might tweak it a little bit here or there, and
Well,
that's a process.
Chris,
Right.
when you're, do you have a process, or do you just kind of wing it when you go into a house?
No, we do. We have a process, and
How's that
really
for a
the sales.
leading question?
That's perfect. That is perfect. The process for us really starts on the response from the marketing piece you put out, whether that be a phone call that you're asking for, an email, a text message, however you put your branding message out or your marketing message, whenever they get back to you, that's really where this sales process starts. Because in real estate, when somebody's going to sell you their house, sometimes they have multiple options. But for today, you're the option they chose to call. So taking off the table what we do, because it's obvious at this point, we buy houses. So that's marketing. What we can do for you is really where the sales process comes in, because we want to know why they called, not what they're calling for.
Mm-hmm.
And that starts from picking up the phone, which, by the way, aside from sales, is probably the most important thing you can do is answer it live. Because if you let somebody go to a voicemail that you ask them to call you when they need your help, and they're leaving a voicemail, while you're listening to that voicemail, we might be talking to them live on the phone. So that's the first most important thing you can do with your marketing pieces is get back to them right away if you can't get that phone call, or just answer it live. And then once that phone call starts, we through a series of questions, we want to find out just what I said before, why they're calling us. You're going to have one of two people call you: the angry people, which weed themselves out right away, and the people that do want your help in some facet, or at least think they do. So we start asking questions in a way that really sounds scary if this is the first time you're trying it, but we want to almost offer those other options they have available to them, and make sure that at the end of the day, we are truly the ones that are able to help them. When it comes down to it, why isn't it that you can't list the house because maybe you get more money on the market, and then just let them answer those questions. Or why not keep the house and maybe make a couple of bucks off of it by being a landlord. These are just simple questions you can start a conversation with, which really starts opening up that motivation pool.
So instead of selling away, let me try and rephrase this. So if I were to go and talk to Josh, and Josh is a motivated seller, Josh could rent the property out himself. Josh could rehab the property himself and sell it. Josh could list it as is with a realtor. There's all these different options. And so what your approach is, Chris, instead of Judah Hoover saying to Josh, hey, you shouldn't list it because of ABC, and you shouldn't rent it out because this, that, and the other thing, and you shouldn't do this and you shouldn't do that. What you do, Chris, is you say, hey, Josh, a lot of people list their house. Tell me why you're not listing your house. Or have you thought about listing your house? Hey, Josh, you could probably get $1,200 a month in rent for this. Have you considered renting it? And do you want to rent it? And so you kind of take the opposite approach, is you let people talk themselves out of all of that and talk themselves into using you.
Right. Well, if you think about the natural psyche in a human, if you're told to do something, the first thing you want to do is rebut that. So
I have four children that don't on a conscious level agree with you, but on a subconscious level, they very much agree with you.
Right. And I always say too that people
Eat
aren't
those
born
cookies.
with
No.
Yeah, well, people aren't born with sales skills, but I almost asterisk that when you have kids. Maybe you are born with them, you just lose them after age 5.
Right. Here's the joke I always tell Chris. I just say because I've always told people they need to just learn how to sell and sharpen their sales skills. And people say all the time, they say, well, I'm not a salesman. I say, oh, why don't you think you're a salesman? And then they go down this list. And I was like, sold me.
Yeah. What an important point too.
Everybody can be a salesman.
What an important point, because I never looked at any of this business as any piece of it as being a sales piece. Coming into it, fresh out of the fire department, we were in this to maybe try some wholesaling, maybe flip some houses, and the approach was always in the beginning to go in and tell them, this is a great option for you. I can give you cash. I can close in 14 days. I can close in 30 days. You're really just telling them what you can do, and you're sticking in that what. And it's this. I'm always going to circle back to the why, because now you're not really focused on their needs. you're not gonna maximize that call or that appointment.
Yeah, that's great insight. So you're focused on what their needs are first, right? And then
Right.
and then once you've kind of established that, or what if you get somebody that is just closed mouthed? You know, like you talk to them over the phone, they want you to come out. Well, I might list the house, I might rent it out. I'm not sure. I'm just kind of weighing my options. What's that look like to you?
Well, case by case is a little different, but somebody that's like near 100% closed mouth, like you say, that we may go these other options, then we may push a little harder. It really depends on what our volume looks like in our business too. We were at a point where if you invite me into the house, we're going to go there. And I think pressing the restart button after this mess that we're in right now, we might go back to that.
Right.
But yeah, if you let me into the house, then we're gonna come see it, no matter what you say on the phone, because you can have a different story when you meet in person and you build on top of that rapport. Because honestly, how long have I known this person? 5, 10 minutes? They don't trust me yet.
Yeah.
Right.
That's exactly right. Okay. All right. So now I invite you into the house. We set up an appointment. Now, do you ever run right out and go see the property, or do you set the appointment down the line, or a couple days out? Or is it a situation by situation thing?
Situation by situation, but most of the time, I would say we make it within 24 or 48 hours, based on 2 times that we give them. Let them make the choice, but we give them times that we have available. There are times that we've hung up the phone and ran right out to the property because they say, just come out and take a look at it. I'll sign your paper today. That doesn't happen all the time, but obviously the car's warming up before the phone call's over.
Sure.
But before I actually go to the house, you want to set some things at ease before you get there. So we're still on the phone at this point, and we know that we're going to make an appointment. We want to set some expectations, because if you just hang up the phone and say, that's great, I'll see you tomorrow at 12, they're going to sit there for the rest of the day and the rest of tomorrow morning wondering what's going to happen when you get there and what to expect from you while you're there. So we try and that can take you 30 seconds. Simple, on the phone. This is what's going to happen. If you let me come out to your house, we're happy to come out tomorrow at 1:00. What I'd want to do is maybe sit down with you for a little bit. Then after that, we can kind of talk about your situation some more and see if, how we can format this offer that I'm going to make you to best help you out. When we're done talking, I'm going to ask you to maybe take me for a short tour of the house. If it's okay with you, I'll take some pictures. At the end of the appointment, if you're prepared to receive an offer and make a decision, yes or no, either way, no is not going to hurt my feelings. But if you're prepared to make that decision at the end of the appointment, then that's what we're going to do. We'll make you a cash offer or whatever option seems like it's going to be the best for you. Right there. Well, I think that took me 30, 45 seconds. Now they're not wondering for the next 12 to 16 hours what's going to happen on the appointment. And
are they going to be here for 3 hours? Are they going to bring in a lot of contractors? Are they going to even make me an offer or not? I remember the first time that I had one of those window people out to my house. And had I known they were going to be in my house for 3 hours, I would not have agreed to it. And because of that, I was a young homeowner at the time. Because of that, whenever somebody wants to come out to my house, I want to know, how long are you going to be here and what are you doing?
Did you ever go on vacation and you had one of those presentations and they say, we'll give you a gift card or we'll give you a free week or something like that? Just come talk to us.
Yeah.
Right.
For a free
That's
massage.
all. And then you go there and they say, this should only take about an hour. And then 9 hours later, you're still sitting there saying, when are we going to finalize this? That's what you want to take off of the table.
I was in Hawaii, and they approached me and the person I was with at the time and said, hey, we'll give you a bus ride to the other side of the island. There'll be a luau. There'll be this, 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 and this. And all you have to do is listen to this presentation. I was like, geez, well, I don't have my own car here. Getting to the other side of the island sounds awesome. Blah, blah, blah. Like there was all these good things. Sure enough, timeshare presentation. I was in it for freaking forever. It was just.
You could have walked to the other side of the island in that time.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. So naturally, especially in this business, from square one, your seller's guard is up. You just want to take that guard down and start opening up that trust. And that's where true rapport building is met. And that's what we're doing with just a couple of simple words.
Awesome. So when you get to the house and you begin, some banter and some discussion, and you talk about the grandkids, pictures that are on the wall, and you notice there's a pool out back, and you say, how, do you use it a lot or don't you use it a lot? Like, at a certain point, you kind of transition that conversation from building rapport to actually getting into business. And depending on what I've sold, I always call that like an opening bridge, which is kind of, how I just transition. And I usually say something like, hey, would it be all right with you if we found a place to sit down, maybe like in your living room or something like that? Like, I'm looking at the living room, I can see there's a table there, but you still kind of play a little bit dumb. Would it be all right if we found a place to sit down and I can show you a couple of things on my laptop here, kind of about who we are as a company, and go over, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So in real estate specific, do you have an opening bridge? And if so, kind of what does that look like, Chris?
So yeah, when we set that expectation on the phone about what we're going to do on the appointment, the first part is sit or stand or whatever is convenient for that house. A vacant house, obviously, we're just going to stand wherever I walk in. And then we just double down on that when we get there. It's nice to meet you. Maybe we can stand over here for a few minutes and talk a little bit. And as we're talking, I always start with the personal stuff. Just start the rapport building. You're becoming friends at this point. And then the transition into actually getting down to business is a very simple question, and that's still meeting their needs. You never make this about you make it about them. So if I feel like that conversation is coming down to that lull where you're running out of fun things to talk about, like it's 70 degrees today, but we're all sitting inside right now. It's really just a question of what, do you have any questions? We talked on the phone 24 hours ago, right? Do you have any questions for me before we get started on the tour of the house? So you're creating that expectation again that yes, we're going to get up soon and take a tour of the house, but what questions do you have for me, if any? And now you're talking about the actual appointment at this point, right? They either have questions or they don't. If they don't, then maybe you just go right on your tour. And during the tour, you're still building rapport, because I don't know if I mentioned it in the beginning, but we never talk about the house on the appointment. I can look at the house with my eyes and I can come up with my estimates before I get there, and make changes in my head. I don't need to talk about their house. We're just talking about them.
Right. And then
what kind of questions typically come up at this point? Before you start walking through, what do you mostly see, and what kind of feedback do you give them?
Honestly, we don't get a lot of questions at that point. The ones that we do get are still some of those, let's call them deal killers, that might come up, where they still think we're scam artists, we're there to steal their house, we're going to lowball them. When we try and ease that a little bit by telling them, when you can go to a realtor and get market value, you're always going to, 100% of the time, you're going to get more money through a realtor than me. Yeah. And we've already had that part of the conversation. There's still some nervousness behind that. And at that point, if I get a question like that, I just know that I haven't had the right questions answered yet, because very, very few times is the transaction about money. So if they're still talking about money, you haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah, that's a really good insight. Very few times is the conversation about money, because if it was, they'd be calling an agent, right?
Right.
Yeah,
exactly right.
Yeah, there's something else. There's something else that is driving them to that point. So we've walked through the property, and man, these conversations go a number of different ways, and you just got to kind of flow with them. I love what you said earlier, that I just want to kind of circle back around to. Sometimes people are like, get out here, make me an offer, and have this sales agreement already filled out because I'm ready to sign. And one of the frustrating things that I always have with as much coaching and teaching for real estate investors as I do, people say, "Oh, great, give me that deal." Or, people are like, "Oh, I just did a flip and I made $100,000 on it." And people say, "Oh, great, give me that deal." Well, the only way you get the super duper motivated people that are just like a lay down, like there's no effort put in it at all whatsoever, they just basically sell themselves, is by doing the numbers and putting in the work and actually doing it. So everyone is different. If you want the easy ones, you also have to deal with the hard ones and the medium ones. And to get the easy yeses, you have to deal with a whole bunch of belligerent no's as well.
That's exactly right.
So you walk the property. Let's say this is an average person. You were able to figure out what's going on. You didn't get too much pushback, but you also didn't get a whole ton of buying signals. How do you do you already know? You already know before you walk in the door what your offer is going to be. Kind of,
Roundabout.
sort of. Yeah. And you can
Yeah.
just kind of discreetly on your phone, and you know what the comps are. So you can kind of figure out what your rehab is going to be by walking the property, and you kind of plug in your formula. It doesn't take you a whole bunch of calculations to come up with that number, correct?
Not at all. Yeah. And the better you get, depending on what your strategy is, we happen to flip. So we have, well, for the most part, we have standardized pricing. So I can make changes in my head, and that doesn't even have to happen on the phone. So I won't go down this rabbit hole, but we offer our bids to our contractors, and we have our supplies paid for in house. So it's really easy to make those calculations in my head while I'm there, and I have a basic idea of what we're going to offer anyway. So very minor changes, but I'm prepared to make that offer at the end of the tour.
Cool.
So you tour the house. How do you transition to sitting back down at the table or standing back in the corner? And this is what's your bridge to that? Or Josh has a question.
I got a question about
Yeah.
the walkthrough on the house. So, what is your real purpose in the walkthrough? Is it and what I mean is, like, you just said that you pretty much know what the construction is going to cost before you even go in the house, and I'll agree with you. Barring some major structural issue or hole in the roof, you can pretty much know what it's going to cost. So when you're walking around that property, what's the intent there?
Well, for us, it's to take pictures. This is your chance to take pictures, and really you're paralleling that with building on top of that rapport that you started in the living room or wherever that started. You're just carrying that conversation on and taking that advantage to get your pictures in while they give you a tour. And you can get into some motivations just by walking in a different part of the house. Maybe something happened here. There's memories here. There's a reason why this is like this. They may talk about the house some, or why they don't go into a certain room. And I'm pulling from actual appointments I was on and different things that come up. But these are certain things that they can put out in the conversation that you start questioning then in a soft way, but to really find out their true motivation at the end before you give your final offer.
So I once looked at a house, and it was a Philly row home, right? And 3-bedroom. You got the 1-bedroom in like the middle of the home, and this guy wouldn't open the door. Finally, he says, "Look, well, you know what? Maybe this isn't a story I can tell, but the bottom line is there was a lot of KY jelly piled up in a membrane inside of this room, and it was pretty wild. But that's a whole different conversation. I got to start filtering myself before I start these stories.
I
thought I'd be the one who had that problem. Yeah,
I was gonna say, I was just gonna pull out the Family Guy line and say, "Go on, we're listening."
No, it is. People would not believe what we see in these houses.
Yeah,
people absolutely would not believe. Also, what I love is, like, now when I'm at friends or family's house and they're like, "Oh, sorry, my house is a little messy," I'm like, "This ain't nothing."
Yeah.
No idea.
You wouldn't believe. Or people who tell me, like, "Oh, this house is trashed. It's awful." I'm like, "Man, it won't even be in the top 10. I mean, like, the top 10 worst houses I've been in are already cemented. It would take nuclear waste to be the worst, for a new house to break into the top 10 houses that I've been in. So that's great. So
before we move on.
Yeah.
I was gonna say quick funny story to that. Before I learned the sales process and we were walking houses, it was always my idea, or the thought that I had when you went into, was to downplay the house, right? And tell them how much money you're going to have to spend on things in the house, and really just make that house seem horrible, which now we know is not the right way to do things. But I was walking through this guy's house and doing that, and was walking through with a pen, and I would point out things and say, "This is really old. That's really old." Finally went upstairs, and there was a crack in the plaster wall. And I poked it with the pen, and I said, "How long's that been there?" And between the bedroom and the bathroom, the whole wall fell down right in the hallway. And all it took was the pen. I said, "Okay, we'll add that to the budget."
Yeah.
So this is why I don't talk about the house. We just want to leave that alone.
But so that's great. So you use the tour to deepen rapport, and not only deepen rapport, but also dig deeper into motivation. I think that's absolutely great. So with about 5 to 10 minutes left here, let's talk about two things: how you do your presentation, and then also kind of what your close looks like. Let's try to get some people some good value on those two things. So when you're going back to the proper, you're going back to the kitchen table after the tour or dining room table or whatever it is. How long of a presentation do you give, and what do you kind of cover in that presentation?
So you really fill that out case by case too. We tried to do something across the board where we gave a presentation, we showed a spreadsheet, we brought comps with us on paper and we showed them. But I really think there's different kinds of people out there. There's the analyticals and there's the non-analyticals, and maybe they don't want to see all that information. So transitioning that conversation from the tour is easy because we say, this there's still a house that we'd be interested in purchasing. If that works out for both of us, do you want to sit down and kind of talk about what that would look like? And that's how we get to that spot in the first place. Once we're there speaking with them,
you intentionally and deliberately give positive information at that point. You don't say, great, let's go sit down. You say, this is still potentially a house would be interested in, let's go sit down.
Right. And as soon as we sit down, I've previously asked them on the phone whether they're able to make a decision that day while I'm there. So if the answer is yes, that they can make a decision, whether that be yes or no, I just want to make sure that that's still the case. Because walking through and getting these feelings to come to the surface as you're asking them questions, people's minds change. I mean, it's just human nature. So I want to make sure they're still in that mindset that I'm still prepared to sell this house if it works out for me today. And at that point, if I get a second yes, now we can kind of go into what that offer looks like. And I'm not just going to break it out on the table and be like 100,000 this week, we can pay for it, take it or leave it. It's you're always softly getting an acceptance from the seller to move on to that next step. And once you go to that next step, you're not going to dive right in. You want to make sure it's yeah. Go ahead.
Well, Chris, I want to make sure I reiterate this and kind of repeat this because we went through this pretty quick. So you go through, and after you walk through the house, you're chatting with them. You're trying to bring up different points of conversation, continually build that rapport. Now we get to the end of that. And now to bridge into the, hey, let's sit down and talk numbers, you're confirming, hey, after looking at the house, this is still, this is definitely something that we may be interested in purchasing from you. Is this still something that you're interested in selling? And if we can put together the right numbers today, you'd be willing to move forward with an agreement.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly right. Yeah, I want that double buy-in because that answer has changed in the past. And then, you're not, the only leverage you have as a salesperson in this case is your number that you give to them. And if they're not willing to accept that or make a decision on that day, you don't want to give that up right away.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you do that on the phone right after they open the door and right after the tour before you sit down and start presenting to them. You say, I'm going to give you a number, and then you're going to tell me yes or no. You say that, by my count, you've said that to them. This is the third time you've said that to them.
Right. Yeah.
That's great.
Exactly right.
I think that's important for people to know and understand that might be part of the reason why they're getting, I want to think about it.
Yeah, which we consider a no. And it's okay to tell them that too, and putting their mind at ease by letting them know if they say no, you're not going to attack them. You're not hurting my feelings. Right. If you tell me no, it means it doesn't work for you, and that's okay. We tried, right? So no is not going to hurt my feelings, but if it's yes, that's awesome. Then we know we can help you out.
Great. So you make the presentation kind of depending on what they want, who they are, everything like that. Whether you go into a bunch of comps, a bunch of charts, or things like that, and there's a bunch of different ways. We don't have to get in deep into your presentation, but then you make them an offer. Talk to me about making the offer and the close as we kind of try and wrap up this call.
Yeah, I'll make this as quick as possible. We'll do more of these, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We're committed to not going more than like 40 minutes on these calls. Okay. You know what I mean? So because we want to be quick and pithy and timely every day at noon.
Yeah.
I get it. We can talk for 15 hours about this stuff.
I know.
Exactly.
So I always start with the question that never gets answered, but I ask it anyway because it's setting up my next question. I asked them if they had an idea of what they want for the property, or was there an asking price? Because I haven't really asked them at this point because I want to make sure that we are in the best position to help them out. And once I know that, I want to know what their asking price is. And usually the answer I get is, I'm not falling into that trap. I'm not giving you, give me your number first. So that's fair enough. I get it. And then just start breaking that question apart a little bit. Do you have a mortgage against the house? Is it free and clear? Things like that. If there's a mortgage against the house and they say, yeah, we might owe 50,000 left on the mortgage. Is there a home equity loan? Things that people don't think about all the time, right? Some little liens here and there, and everything adds up to 60,000, let's say. It's okay. Well, obviously, when we purchase the house, we'll be in a position to pay off all those liens. But obviously, you want some money to walk away from the table from, I'm guessing, right? So what does that look like? We sign the papers at the table. What are you walking away with to make sure that you can get to your next step in life?
Mhm.
And maybe that's 30,000. I need to be able to put a down payment on a house, or I need to be able to pay off some debt. But I'd really love 30,000. So they just told me their asking price by answering those two questions. And now I know if my offer is going to be in their ballpark or not.
So you have not asked what their asking price is already. I mean, up until this point, you've talked to them over the phone. You probably spent 45 minutes to an hour with them. Do you do some research to see if they owe more than you can pay for the house before you go out there?
We do. Yeah.
Okay.
If you have that access to public records, we'll have a basic idea.
Okay.
And if it's in a position and it doesn't fit our strategy, that might just be a phone call back and kind of see what they need. And if we can't help them, maybe there's somebody that can, and we will refer them out.
Okay. All right. Sorry to interrupt you. Keep going.
No, that's fine. So once we get the asking price from them, and that isn't answered 100% of the time either, but it's really getting you funneled down to whether you're in the right ballpark or not. And if you're in the right ballpark, that's an easier transition into my final offer. If you're nowhere near them, this is where that anchor price comes in. And in a future interview, we can kind of get into what anchors look like and how you can use them strategically. But an anchor is just really lower than your highest offer for simple terms. And if my offer is 90,000, I might come in at 70,000 and tell them that's not something that they can accept. And I know that, but this is what my initial figures are coming out at. And I feel really bad about that, but 70 is not something you'd ever accept. Now, I'll say this, twice that number they were ecstatic about that number and took it, and that's great. But you're really just using this as a setup to kind of gauge where they're at, because you're going to get one of two reactions from that. There's going to be the guy that wants to throw you out of their house, or the one that feels really bad because they would never be able to accept 70. Mm-hmm. And I knew that because I told you but what did you kind of have in your mind? Because now they're more prone to tell you what their asking price is.
Mm. Nice.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think Chris, that we need to have you back on and just talk about closing the sale, anchor pricing, handling objections, and things like that. And I think that would be an awesome kind of follow-up show here. So give us the 45-second plug on who Chris and Mel are, and kind of how people can find out more about you and what you guys are. And also, if you won't mention it, I'll mention it. Preseason REI is a great thing to check out. It's on Google, it's on Facebook, and everything like that. Preseason REI, you guys do some really great training. I've been doing this for 20 years, and I watch your videos and learn a bunch from them.
Yep.
And on that, and I appreciate you saying that, there's a group that we just started, and I believe you just became a member of it. My idea there is to take a little bit of the new and a little bit of the experienced, put us all together. We're not going to charge anything, but I'd like to do trainings on a regular basis, really focused trainings. So that's going to be a lot of fun. But for our business, we're primarily flippers. We're CNM Housing Solutions. Our website is sellmyhouseasis.com. How we found that, I don't know, but it was a good one.
How'd you get that URL?
I don't know. That was a lucky day. Chris at cnmhousingsolutions.com, or on Facebook. You can reach me in like 11 different groups.
Right. That's awesome. Josh, tell us about Hard Money Bankers of Central PA.
Yeah, if you're looking for private investment capital for your next deal, we are a direct lender. We lend on fix and flip properties, bridge financing, short-term refinances, and because we're a direct lender, we can give you an answer same day that you contact us. We can close within 24 hours as long as the title's done and your insurance is in place. So, even if you don't call us the first time and your lender bows out at the last second, give us a ring. We've closed deals on the same day as origination in an emergency situation. So, let us know. We lend in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, Washington, D.C., and Northern Virginia.
Wow, that is absolutely awesome. And my name is Judah Hoover, your co-host here with Josh, and I am an executive with Slate House Group Property Management. We manage about 4,000 units across 4 states, and we also want to be your solution when it comes to listing real estate or buying real estate. We manage units unit counts as large as 250 unit apartment complexes and down to, the ubiquitous single family home in good parts of town and bad parts of town. And we like to say that we are a modern real estate company. So whatever you need when it comes to real estate, be it buy, sell, or manage, we definitely want to be a solution for you. Listen, I really appreciate everybody listening and checking us out. Josh and Chris, this was a fabulous show. And we will be back here tomorrow at noon to talk about the news of the week.
All right, Chris.
Thanks for having me on again.
Hey, Judah. Take care.